The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website.
Hello everyone and welcome to Live and Learn. I am your host, Jerry Renaud. We are going to move away from our normal setup for Live and Learn this week, this month. Most of the time we have 4 hosts and we have 4 different guests. We do have 4 guests, but it's just one host, and we're going to have a very special topic. We want to talk about Elder Abuse Awareness Month. That is coming up in June. We are taping our program in May, so this will be celebrating is probably not the right word to use, but we are going to make people aware and be concerned about elder abuse and the awareness and the different forms that it can take. And so we've brought in a very august panel to talk to you today about some different areas. Let me introduce them to you. First of all, as a friend to the show who's a regular contributor, Ryan Sothan. He is with the Nebraska Attorney General's Office dealing with scams and fraud education. I know you have a long title, but I thought maybe that was enough. Next is Kelly Lammers. He is the Director of the Nebraska Department of Banking and Finance. He will talk about an initiative to help Nebraskans save more, invest wisely, and fight fraud, among all kinds of other things. We have Toni Moncera from Adult Protective Services. She is a program specialist looking to help vulnerable adults with protection from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. And last but not least is Mark Collins. He is the Director of Medicaid Fraud and Patient Abuse, prosecuting Medicaid fraud, white-collar crime, and complex civil litigation impacting Nebraska seniors. That is a mouthful, but thank you all for being here. I think it's going to be a fabulous, interesting conversation. Ryan, let's start with you. And the only reason I say that is because the last time you were on and we talked for quite a while and we didn't quite get to everything that we wanted to be able to talk to. And I know one of those things is that we have some new numbers of how Nebraska ranks against some other states.
Very good. Well, the numbers are a creation of the results received in our office from calls to our consumer affairs response team. We take anywhere from 500 to 1,000 calls a month. At year's end, we rolled that call detail up to the Federal Trade Commission, who, with other 49 states attorneys general reporting, then blends that data, melds that data together, and then distributes that data later into the new year. And it does so on the basis of fraud complaints per 100,000 population, so that we can compare a small population state like Nebraska to a large population state, be it California, New York, Florida, Texas, what have you. When we look at the numbers, and this is a stack ranking unlike the football, volleyball, basketball, baseball, you do not want to be in the top 10.
You want to be lower.
You want to be in the bottom 10. And here the news is good. Nebraska ranks in terms of fraud complaints per 100,000, 40th out of the 50 states. Superficially, that is very good, but we have all learned that the devil is in the details. What's concerning is the trend line. Over the past 3 years, we've moved in the wrong direction. We were 47th, but 36 months ago, 24 months ago, we were 44th. Now we're 40th. So what's driving that? And what's driving that is, perhaps any one of 3 factors. First and foremost is there's a technology bent that the scammers are using right now, whether it's deep fakes or voice prints or AI-generated content, AI being artificial intelligence. That's definitely having an impact, especially on the senior population who might be flummoxed by any aspect of technology unfamiliar to them. The second is data breaches. Data breaches are probably at their zenith, their high point during the course of this relatively young decade that we're now, I guess, midway through.
And where are we seeing these data breaches?
Well, we're seeing data breaches across large organizations, large databases. We had a very large data breach about 15 months ago now with a major third-party administrator in the healthcare industry called Change Healthcare. But whether it's in medical services, whether it's in retail brick and mortar, online retail, or the hospitality industry. All of those are large databases that are treasure troves of personal information for the professional scammers. And then the third category seems to be a growing category. I know we had the opportunity to touch on this briefly last time we met, but it is investment in cryptocurrency related scams, many times tied to a romance scam as the initial basis for getting into a crypto investment scheme. But that has been spreading like wildfire of late. So we're very, very concerned. But the last point that I want to make is, though we appear to be strong, being in the bottom quintile of fraud complaints, there is deliberate targeting within the senior segment. We see seniors here in the state of Nebraska representing about 24% of the state population, but they're 36% of our complaints overall. And then looking at other study data that can inform some of our decision making. There was a seminal study a few years back called Under the Radar, the Elder Abuse Prevalence Study. And with anonymity guaranteed to the seniors, they really confided at a surprising level exactly what was going on in their lives. And they told us conclusively from 4,200 completed surveys that their incurred rate of fraud and abuse was 44 times greater than the reported rate. So if our reported rate here is 36%, and yet the incurred rate is 44 times greater, rhetorical question. How big of a problem do we have? We don't rightly know. It's
Why do
bigger
you
than
think
any
that
of us
is?
think.
I mean, why are they targeting this group? It seems like this would be a smart group that wouldn't be taken in.
For the same reason that Willie Sutton robbed banks, because that's where the money is, there is a perception, rightly or wrongly, that this segment of the marketplace, through a lifetime of earnings, savings, investments, but general income accumulation, has a very high disposable income. Furthermore, we're Nebraskans, so we are available, willing to engage, highly compliant, and if a connection can be made, if a stranger who called us 5 minutes ago has made a connection with us and asks us for a favor, we're likely to extend ourselves because that's who we are.
Yeah. Just to show everybody, I never follow the script. Kelly, the data breaches, do you see this in banking?
Banking is very fortified. I have the privilege of working with state-chartered banks in the state of Nebraska. I also have credit unions, broker-dealers, investment advisors, small monies. So basically, the people that touch other people's money are licensed and chartered through the state of Nebraska, through the Department of Banking and Finance. So the people that we have that work with financial institutions have cybersecurity training and work with those institutions that they have third-party safeguards to step forward and protect. Having said that, though, we have really grown up. We've matured as a state. We have more billion-dollar banks in the state of Colorado. So
Wow.
as you start looking at that wealth transfer, we have a generation that has worked a lifetime, and they are accustomed to moving business transactions, moving their life at the speed of trust. So today, as we start looking at these numbers and we start analyzing how do we step back and address this growing problem as to, are they not reporting, are they underreporting, and then what do we do with the reporting? It comes down to how do we promote a community of trust. And to answer your question directly, what you'll notice, I dance around that a great deal. Yes, we have constant conversations with financial institutions. They are working to protect your identity, and at the same time, people need to use the tools that are there. Are they using multi-factor authentication? Are they using those things that step forward and offer some realm of security? And at the same time, be on the guard.
Yeah.
Watch what's coming in your email or on your phone.
Yeah. Mark and Tony, do you guys see the same sort of trend as Ryan is talking about in terms of the numbers?
We do see that kind of a trend, and it is an underreported crime. And it's, absolutely right that the reason that the senior audience is targeted is because that's where the money is. Mm-hmm. The scammers are getting more sophisticated, but even a less sophisticated scheme still can be successful because of the trust factor that older folks have. Just this week I got a call from my credit card company saying my card had been compromised, and we went through a variety of transactions, and then the caller asked me for my user ID. Ooh. And so that's when I hung up. And I thought maybe it was a fake call, but I wasn't sure until that. And you know, the thing to do, I think if you have a call like that come in, is when in doubt, hang up and call the credit card company back. Their number is always on the back of the card. Ask for their fraud department, and they'll tell you whether or not your card's been compromised. But folks are very trusting, and they're being targeted because they're trusting and because they have money. And those are just, that's what makes the older population just ripe for the picking.
Yeah. Tony?
Yeah, we've definitely seen an increase in the reporting of exploitation, as well as in our investigating and substantiating those cases. So over the past 10 years, we've kept some track of some numbers, and the low was in 2016, where we had 1,783 reports of exploitation. Well, last year in 2024, we had 3,218 reports of exploitation, and that's includes reports from banks. It includes reports mostly from professionals when when the individuals they're working with appear to be losing money at a rapid rate, or their spending habits have changed significantly, or they don't get out of the house much, but their ATM card is being used across town. We tend to see more incidents like that than the banking and securities fraud. But we do see those as well.
So, Ryan, what do we do? I mean, it seems like this is a problem.
Underreporting is a serious problem. First is to treat the senior with empathy and respect. Let them know that they're not alone, that there is no shame in falling victim to a professional scam artist. And a couple of things immediately come to mind. One is we can think back as an older generation of people. Back in the 80s when we were talking our foreign policy, we had a motto of trust but verify. I'd like to turn that on its head slightly and encourage seniors to verify first, trust later. I think that's extremely important in terms of preventing their potential victimization. Then I'd like to encourage them, and I believe we've covered this before, to at least bring one other person in on their thought process, to tell someone, a family member, a friend, a trusted advisor, what's going on, what they might be asked by the person on the other end of the phone call or text message to do, and say, hey, I'm a little bit suspicious of this. What's your 2 cents? What's your read on this? And it has been proven that when you bring someone else in on the decision making, that the likelihood of being victimized to a fraud or a scam decreases by about 2/3. So it's significant.
Wow.
It doesn't take it to zero, but it definitely reduces the potential impact and loss.
You know, I think it's one of those things about losing control when you give a power of attorney to somebody else, or you give up your car, or you give up whatever it is. And I'm the oldest one here, so as I'm moving sort of towards that, I mean, I think that's a scary thing, and I'd like to get everybody involved in talking about that, but we've run out of time here in our first segment. We need to take a quick break. So we'll be back with Live and Learn in just a minute or so. Welcome back to Live and Learn. We have a great panel today that is talking about elder abuse and the problem with it and how we can resolve some of it. And all 4 of these folks are going to be in an OLLI class. Again, we're taping this in May, but in June, and it is June 16th, and I hope I have that date right. It is a Monday from 1 to 2:30. They are going to be talking about elder abuse and its prevention and what we can do about it. It's going to be at the Jack Huck Continuing Education Center, Southeast Community College at 301 South 68th Street. So if you are watching this in the first part of June, you can still get registered for the class. I would encourage you to do that. There'll be all kinds of other things that they're going to talk about other than what we're going to talk about here. Okay, back to our discussion. Kelly, you have an impressive position, Director of Banking and Finance. That must encompass lots of things going on in your day. How do you fit into this elderly abuse prevention program?
The ability to conduct business in the state of Nebraska is critical to our economy. It's critical to our family structure. That ability for us to make decisions, to have choice, is part of what we expect as Nebraskans. In working with licensed chartered financial institutions, what we found is many people are starting to receive a text message. They're part of a group chat. Well, they're really not a part of a group chat. It looks to be the wrong number. And all of a sudden there's this question, this doesn't make sense. To move that initiative forward as a government entity that, and by the way, I was speaking to a group of fourth graders rather, in York, Nebraska, about 18 months ago. I mentioned I work for the government, and they booed.
Oh, no.
The teachers just were beside themselves, and we had an incredible opportunity to talk about what does it mean to provide something that the public is looking for. So with that conversation, we rolled this into, there's a new website, and everybody is so fond of websites, and I apologize for that, but you know, we decided that there would be an initiative out there that takes everybody's links and put them into one place. Back in my day, we called that a phone book. And half the audience will not know what that is. Nonetheless, what I'm talking about is make sense. That's your pennies. Make, C-E-N-T-S, make sense. S-E-N-S-E, Nebraska.gov. With that initiative, what we're doing is we're saying, what is a transaction that moves at the speed of trust? As we get into a world of cryptocurrency, which we may talk about later today,
We will.
you know, that moves very fast, and yet so does a wire transfer, and so does a checking account. And yet, you know, there's a number of people that are under the age of 40 that don't believe they need home base. They don't believe they need a checking account, whether it be with a bank or a credit union. So how we fit in all of this is to literally make sense of the transaction. If you have a question relative to a transaction, I have examiners, investigators. We work with both banks, credit unions. We work with the securities industry. We have the ability to subpoena. We are trained to follow the money. So we would trace either cryptocurrency or trace traditional transactions. However, we're part of, I have the honor of working for the governor. Tremendous privilege. But that means we're the executive branch. So as we build these cases, we refer them to Adult Protective Services. We refer them to the Attorney General's office. We work closely with law enforcement. So we fit in the middle.
And how do you see this new era, I guess, of money? Whether, I mean, people have on their phone and they just can do that. Is that making it more difficult to control how they make sense?
Making sense of a transaction is an individual's expectation. It's part of their choice. There's a lot of people that believe they should be able to pull out a phone and make that flash transaction work with their phone. And, you know, maybe with today's technology, that does make sense. And yet at the same time, there's the transaction detail records that fundamentally come with a checking account and have that conversation in terms of should that work. What we've done is step back, looking more at this academically and saying that each of these are an asset. And if you hold a cryptocurrency, you hold an asset. And if you hold a deposit, you are a holder in due course under Nebraska's Uniform Commercial Code, and you also have an asset. So there it comes down to how do we make choice? And you know, if speed makes such a difference, it's critical that I start talking to other people. I find that I have a trusted advisor. But you know, maybe one advisor might not be enough. Because sometimes when I get that text message and I go, man, I'm not part of that group, I need to remember, just delete it. Don't respond. Now, the best way to do that is this group, they have coffee, we get together, we chit chat. You know, this is a great group. If I'd mentioned to them, I believe I heard you say earlier in the segment, well, just hang up. You know, that just became my trusted advisor.
Yeah.
And then the party that I'm talking about, you turn over a credit card. Well, there's the phone number. Why did it come from this other number? So as we work through trusted advisors and we work for the conversation, does it make sense? This Make Sense website that the Department of Banking and Finance is moving forward as an initiative literally is referrals. How do you look up who is an investment advisor? How do you look up a bank? How do you look up various pieces of documentation that add credibility? Because in today's world, who do you trust is a very complicated question. But should you be able to make a transaction work for you with your expectations of either purchase or business? I would argue that that is part of my role as well, because I need to make that work.
Right.
But I need to make it work in a way that you trust it, and yet before you entered into it, you knew it was valid.
Right. Let me ask you this, because I have heard different answers to this question. Credit card. Tap it, slide it, put it in. Which is the safest way that people are not going to steal your number? Or is there a safer way?
There is a great deal of detail that goes behind your question, but to break tradition and actually answer your question first before I give you the detail.
Okay.
Tapping it.
Oh, okay.
Tapping it is near field communication, NFC. It has to do with something in which the device was ready to receive an instruction. Your card offered the identifier, which was not your credit card number, by the way, and that authorized the transaction. It becomes a multi-factor transaction that knows I was there, knows the card was there, and you go, well, how do you know you were there? And with that, that's how the credit card companies trace back. Well, were you there on this last transaction, or were you there the transaction before? It becomes a proof of history as opposed to some are calling a proof of stake or a proof of work. It's a different type of chain of transactions. It's like how your checking account once worked. But at the same time, then there are those people that carry a wallet that has certain RFID, radio frequency identification device, RFID, protection around their credit cards. So it's a little insert that goes into your wallet, your purse, and you slide your credit card in it.
Oh,
and that way, no one else could, well, accidentally tap into you.
Right.
That near field communication has a very, very short range. It does protect from some things. Now, at the same time, the other devices are also secure. There's been a great deal of press relative to skimming. The devices that were installed on gas station pumps to every other kind of pump. And it was very much an intrusive theft, if you will. They actually opened the case and did things internally. You may not be able to notice that it was different. Nonetheless, talk to your credit card company. If you see something that you did not authorize, call, put a fraud alert out there. If there's more than one transaction, stop that transaction under that number. Have them reissue the card.
Yeah, I feel fortunate, I guess, in some fashion, because my credit card company will call me and say, did you authorize this? And I will say no, and they'll say, well then we're canceling the card right now. We'll send you a new one, which I do appreciate. What about at like a restaurant? Is there a way to sort of protect yourself, because you put your card down and they take it away and you have no idea what's happening with it?
In that case, you have lost control of your card, and that is a standard transaction, and that is somewhat of the risk that you take on request. I have known that you are able to walk up to the cash register and conduct the transaction as you leave. If you're feeling uncomfortable with that transaction, if you're traveling, if it's a place you're not accustomed to. At the same time, it's one of those issues of reading your statement as your credit card company produces that statement. I would look at every transaction. It may even be possible that, depending upon your credit card company, you may receive a notice with every charge. As you receive those notices, those become the ones that, well, I did authorize that, so when I send it with the waiter, in a few moments, I expect that ding to come in, and there's notification that the charge went through. That option may be available, and if that is of interest, or in some people it just drives them crazy that they get that notice. However, it's one of those things, how do you work with your institution? So I need to know that that charge that came in actually came from my company. Again, who do I trust? So it's one of those things, unless I asked for the information, I somewhat need to be suspect of it initially. So if I don't know if that actually came from my card company, turn the card over, call the number on the back of the card, and that is the best way to get a hold of them quickly. If you work with a local bank, a local credit union, of course, go into those organizations, ask them about your debit card or your credit card.
Yeah, and I don't get them, but my wife on a regular basis gets an email from her bank saying, oh, this credit card you have here it won't take this automatic withdrawal or whatever it is. You need to go back in, and she always says, so should I do that? I go, no, do not do that. I said, you can call the bank if you want, and they can tell you whether they sent that out to you or not. But are you seeing more of an issue with banks trying to be sort of being a part of this fraud process even though they're not a part of it?
Banks are very much protective of their customer base, as are credit unions. So they are very much on the defensive, attempting to provide every tool that they can. What we're seeing are the people that are conducting fraudulent activities. They are moving into, instead of a grab your purse and run approach, instead of a smash and grab, they're finding that with time and with research, they're able to discover more about your assets and actually steal more. So instead of simply saying that this is one issue, it becomes an issue of an approach to getting to know you. It's a romance scam. It's a business impersonation. It's an imposter investment, an investment scam.
Are we seeing more complaints against banks, or is
we're seeing more crime. We're seeing more fraudulent activity. If it comes to me, they likely believe that it came through their bank, or their bank was in some way related to it, or their credit union, or their investment advisor. However, they may have been a party that one time held the funds. However, in more cases than not, unfortunately, the person that had control of the account went in and withdrew cash to buy gift cards.
Oh.
They went in and used the cash to make a money order, or they originated some other type of funds transfer. So first of all, if the party's calling and they're saying, let's convert from one type of financial tool to another, you really have to ask yourself, why are they wanting to do that? Why would they ever want me to do cryptocurrency or something different than what I've done before? And that's simply to throw me off balance. So the bank and the credit union and the investment advisors aren't wanting to throw me off balance. They're actually wanting me to have the tools that I can make decisions using their resources. However, the people that are trying to steal from me, they do want me off balance.
Is there some sort of educational process for people, or for the banks, or who people who work at the bank, to sort of identify when there's something weird going on in somebody's account, or they can put a freeze on it or something?
You know, the state of Nebraska stepped forward a little over 4 years ago now and created legislation protecting vulnerable adults for financial exploitation and others, engaging both the department, the AG, Adult Protective Services, making more of us as a unified team. You had a right to privacy. Up until that law came in, if you controlled an account and the bank questioned you and said, do you really want to do this? And you said yes, they had no choice.
Right.
They were bound to pay on order. So with that law, there created a opportunity to have that freeze of a transaction if the bank is suspecting it, or if the trusted advisor should be contacted. So on occasion, it would be wise to consider a power of attorney, work with somebody else, maybe just an advisor. I'm not going to give my brother power of attorney. But if I'm doing something really crazy, well, yeah, bank, investment advisor, you could call my brother. Or I'm not going to trust my brother. Maybe that's my friend that I drink coffee with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give them any legal authority, but yeah, they know my money. The problem with generational transference of what is comfortable, my age does not talk about money. we'll talk. I've got some medical problems. I'll show you one of them here. But I'm not going to talk about money.
Right.
My
Yeah.
kids are in their 40s. My grandkids, they talk about money all the time. And yet, at the same time,
Interesting.
we're supposed to sit down at a table and have a comfortable conversation as to, well, I did this online. I did this because of a phone call. I did this because of a friend.
Yeah.
And what those people are stealing is our family. They're taking away our trust of each other. So yeah, they're taking much more than our money when they reach in. So as that trusted advisor, let's start rebuilding what our communities are
Yeah.
and what we remember them to be, and not let these criminals take that from us. We're Nebraskans.
Yep.
Let's do it the right way.
Well said. We're out of time for this segment. We need to take a quick break. We'll be back with Live and Learn right after this. Welcome back to Live and Learn. We are talking about elder abuse prevention, and one of the key elements of that is adult protective services here in Nebraska, and Tony is a program specialist with that. For somebody who doesn't really know what that means, tell us what adult protective services is all about and how you spend your day.
Well, as a program specialist, I spend a lot of my time at a computer. There are 40 or so field staff, about 40 field staff across the state of Nebraska who actually do the investigations of the intakes that we investigate. And there are 6 supervisors and a training coordinator and an administrator. And that's our tiny but mighty program here in Nebraska.
Okay.
The folks on the boots on the ground, you know, they get a report in their area where they work, and they'll go out and make face-to-face contact with the alleged victim, and they'll go from there, talking to the victim if they can, talking to any collateral contacts, anyone who cares for that person. Usually try to make contact with the reporter if the reporter has provided their information, and amass financial records if they're necessary, medical records when they're necessary, and at the end of the investigation, determine whether that case is going to be substantiated or unfounded. Substantiated cases do get referred to the local county attorneys, and then it's up to them if they're going to prosecute.
Okay. What's the percentage of when you go out on a call of taking it to that next level or that next step?
So last year in Nebraska, we had about 15,000 calls that involved adult protective services at all.
So you had to investigate 15,000?
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Of those that were called in, 3,500 were accepted for assessment. And of those, 482 were actually substantiated, and that's about 14% of the cases.
Okay. But what I'm hearing from the group is that there are a lot more cases that are probably out there that don't get called in.
There are. Some studies say 1 in 44 are actually called in, and there's another study that says 1 in 24. But either way, that's quite a few that are never reported. And it's estimated that about 1 in 5 people over the age of 60 in this country is a victim of abuse, neglect, or exploitation annually.
Really?
Yeah. So
That's an incredible figure.
that's a lot of people. And you know, it can be physical abuse, it can be neglect by a caregiver or self-neglect, or it could be financial or property exploitation. So.
I know a lot of people are a little concerned about going into some retirement homes or nursing homes, thinking that could be a problem. Are those places that you investigate as well?
In Nebraska, we do. Not every state does. We don't investigate the actual facility, but we'll investigate the staff if the staff is alleged to have committed neglect, abuse, or exploitation. Our licensure folks over in public health, they do investigate the facilities for the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare per their rules. And we do work in tandem, but not necessarily side by side, because they have different time frames, they have different things that they're looking at, but
Sure.
we do communicate with them. We will be looking more at, this individual is or may be responsible for this act or omission toward another individual.
That must be a
Make sense?
tough conversation to have with somebody who has made a complaint and you go out and you have to deal with them, because I would think a lot of it is on a really personal level.
It can be very personal. Often the victims or the alleged victims, the adults that we're working with, don't necessarily want to talk to Adult Protective Services. For one thing, we're the government.
Sure.
And not everybody is all excited to talk to the government. In some cases, if the individual doesn't want to work with us, we can close a case. We don't like to. We want to know if this person has been harmed, and we want to be able to offer whatever services will help them not be in that position again. But adults have the right to refuse our services. A person who is determined to be competent to direct their own care, someone who's decisional, if they tell APS, get off my porch, we kind of have to get off their porch.
Right.
We will continue to investigate what we can, but if they don't want to talk to us, they don't have to talk
Right.
to us. Our folks, though, those 40 APS specialists out in the field, for the most part, are very engaging people. They're very passionate and caring people, and they do a very good job of talking people into talking to them. That, I'm here to help you. I'm not here to harm you. I'm not able to, nor do I want to put you in a facility. There's a great fear among older people that they're going to be taken from their homes and placed into, a nursing home or some care facility. We do get confused sometimes with Child Protective Services. It kind of sounds the same,
Yep.
but we're not. We're very different. And adults are presumed to have that agency to be able to make their own choices, and they have civil rights that we can't trample on. Unless a person has been determined to no longer be decisional, we can't tell them what to do.
Right. Let's bring Mark into this because he's the prosecutorial part of that. You two must have to work together pretty closely to try to figure out, is this person going to be able to testify or be a part of this whole conversation? And do they change their mind at the end sometimes?
They can. We do work closely with Adult Protective Services. Most all of our complaints of abuse, neglect, or exploitation come from Adult Protective Services. We receive the intakes that APS gets, and we'll review 8,000 or so of those a year.
Wow.
Just to see if there's anything to it that we need to look at from the Attorney General's office. And of those that we look at, we see mostly that it's financial exploitation as opposed to physical abuse or neglect of a senior. But we see those kinds of cases too. And if there is a case that looks to be one of financial exploitation, we will work with APS. We'll tell them that we've gotten the intake as well. And we will coordinate our efforts so that we're not stepping on each other's toes. And then sometimes that means that APS goes first and does their thing, and then we look at to the results of their investigation. And other times it means we go first, and we'll go and talk to the person who was victimized and conduct an investigation, including a financial investigation. And the unit that I run has 5 investigators, all of whom are trained to do these kinds of investigations and to deal with seniors and know how to talk to them. One of the interesting things that pops up, as has been mentioned before, is that a lot of times these folks don't want to talk, and it can be for the reason that they don't want to be, considered a victim.
Right.
But the other thing that comes up a lot with financial exploitation is that the person who is exploiting them is a relative.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens is that you have folks who have received agency through a durable power of attorney. Okay, now what is that document? A power of attorney is a document that gives another person the authority to act on your behalf. And the authority that they have is based upon what's in that document. okay? I authorize you to do A, B, and C. And the kinds of things that you see them authorize are do my banking, okay? So they have, the authority to change accounts, do whatever they want. It could give them the authority to handle my real estate, which means buy a house, sell a farm. And it gives them the authority to deal with stocks and bonds. It gives them the authority to deal with lawsuits, settle a lawsuit, bring a lawsuit, things like that. And folks hear about durable powers of attorney, and what a durable power of attorney is one that allows that person to keep acting on your behalf, even though you might no longer have the capacity to do these things yourself. So you've got somebody who's got dementia in a nursing home. They can't act for themselves, but that durable power of attorney allows their agent to do things for them. And sometimes that agent self-deals, and that's where the problem arises.
Yeah, I was going to say, in some higher profile ones that you see about on TV or in the paper, it's kind of a, well, they promised me the money anyway, so, why can't I go out and spend it on a boat, or why can't I buy a cabin somewhere?
Because it's still their money.
Yeah.
And that's the long and short of it. If you were supposed to be the heir to that person's estate, then you have to wait, okay? And if you say that, but this person gave me gifts during my lifetime, well, then we have to look at the document, the power of attorney, and see whether or not it says that the person can make gifts to others or make gifts to themselves. And it may contain that kind of language, or it may not, and that determines whether or not we have a route to take as far as prosecuting somebody. So we have to look at that. But the main thing that we have to be aware of is that these folks don't have the ability to replace the money that they lose. Okay, they're retired.
Right.
So this is their nest egg, and when you have people who self-deal, you're taking away that kind of money from them, which means that they could end up being destitute and having to go on government assistance when they should have had the money to pay for their own care.
Right.
And that's what they intended to do all along. That's why they saved that money, so that they could be taken care of, in their twilight years.
Sure.
And then these folks who they trusted have taken that money from them.
Yeah.
So I think the lesson to be learned from that is, if you think you're being victimized, speak up. And that includes speaking up against a relative. And I know that's tough to do.
Yeah.
It is.
Would be.
But we're trained on how to talk to people about that, and so that they understand just exactly how serious this is. And the other thing is if you believe that you're being taken advantage of by your power of attorney, you can revoke it as long as you still have the capacity. And you should revoke it and get a different power of attorney, and have that with a person who you would have a greater deal of trust in.
Yeah. Let me ask you both this. Where's your level of frustration sometimes when you go, I know this is happening, I can't get the county attorney to do anything. You go, I know I can win this case, but they won't testify, or they won't, I can't proceed with it.
It does happen, and we work with county attorneys on these kinds of cases, or we will take the case from the county attorney with their permission. And it can be frustrating because it all boils down to evidence. We're going to court, and so it's not what we believe, it's what we can prove.
Yeah.
And and it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal case. And so we have to come with pretty strong evidence in these cases. And one of the things that has to be resolved is that the victim is willing to do their part and testify.
Right.
Well, and on our side, we're social workers. We're not necessarily accountants or mathematicians, right?
Sure.
So it's been a challenge over the years to dig through those financial documents and make sense of them, and have the evidence to turn over to the county attorney or the AG's office.
Right.
However, back in 2023, we were able to contract with a forensic accounting firm.
Oh, wow, great.
And they have done a fantastic job. In 2023, they identified $666,000 of misappropriated funds among our cases. In 2024, it was 3.6 million, and already in 2025, it's been over $1 million. So it's been a total of $5.3 million in about the last 2.5 years. So that's really been helpful. Now we have better evidence to share with our partners in order to get those cases prosecuted, because
Very
that's
good.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to take one more quick break, and then we're going to come back and we'll have a fun discussion about cryptocurrency and why we struggle with unreported incidents. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. We are talking today about elderly abuse and its prevention and some of the issues that are surrounding it. Ryan, you mentioned earlier about how technology is becoming more and more prevalent in scams and trying to take people's money. Cryptocurrency is, I guess, a part of that, and I think you all at least have some dealing with that sort of issue. Who wants to talk about cryptocurrency?
Ryan, I'll jump in.
Okay.
Had the privilege 4 years ago of receiving legislation that was called the Nebraska Financial Innovation Act. And in being innovative, the conversation came into, today if you want to buy something, you could write a check or you could swipe a card, but now there's card fees. And why can't, if I'm going to buy that collectible guitar that you have, and you've had that in your garage, well, climate control garage, for years.
Right.
And we reached a price, and well, I'm going to show up at your garage, and I'm going to buy that from you tonight, 10:30 tonight. We agree on that and text, and do you want me to show up with that amount of cash? And I'm going to say no, because I'm going to assume that's a very attractive guitar. And then would you take a check from me? And I'm going to think, no, you don't know me. I wear a suit. You question those kind of people. And then, well, we can do a credit card, but only if you have certain kind of connections. So how do I make that transaction work so that you know it is good ahead of time? The Nebraska Financial Innovation Act was created with that purpose in mind. However, what we have in the wild today is also something that's called cryptocurrency. As a result of cryptocurrency, it also enables this instant transaction that is the packaging of either money or packaging of wealth. So you have to ask yourself, anytime you're entering into a cryptocurrency transaction, are you packaging your money? Why does it need to move that fast? Or are you packaging wealth? Am I investing in something with the anticipation that I'm going to have a rate of return? And as a result of that, this packaging, what kind of package doesn't come with, well, postage and handling, quite honestly? So in making that make sense, you have to ask yourself, why am I being directed to repackage my money? So cryptocurrency, within the Nebraska Financial Innovation Act, there is a word called stablecoin. That is what Nebraska law identifies, and we are in the process of working with an entity that is interested in becoming chartered to issue cryptocurrency in the state of Nebraska. At this point, they have gone through a public hearing, but they are not chartered at this point in time. So within the state structure, we do not have a state chartered entity issuing a stablecoin. However, the state senator back in that time, who is now a U.S. congressman, Mike Flood, continuing to promote that kind of packaging, saying that that type of instant transaction needs to be within banking, and it needs to be within a controlled environment. And that is where the Stable Act came from. And the Governor Ricketts, that signed the legislation into law, is now Congressman Ricketts working with the Genius Act as well. Currently, that act is being reviewed and reconsidered and worked on relative to bringing it back into a government-regulated entity. What we have right now is unregulated. So it comes back into, what are you buying? Why are people asking you to repackage your wealth? And how does it work? When I say how does it work, I'm going to throw out one example. I had an individual, I'm going to call Mike. Mike contacted me and said, Kelly, great comments on cryptocurrency. And I go, Mike, I don't know what you're talking about. Mike believed that he'd been talking to me through text messaging for months.
My goodness.
And he believed that I had told him how to invest in cryptocurrency using something that's called a cryptocurrency ATM. And Mike and I spoke at some length, which took a little time because he kept saying, well, tell Kelly I'm here, and Kelly knows all about this. And the people that I work with go, are you expecting anybody? If you've been led down that path, work with the government employees. Let them know that somebody's pretending to be them. And in getting Mike's situation reported and tracking it down, we were unable to recover funds. However, at the end of the conversation, he said, you know what really upsets me is I believed I had a friend because I apparently, the pretend me, had offered advice on running for political office.
Oh my.
I had apparently offered websites on how to file certain kind of government grants. I had done other things that reportedly, and this was not me, apparently offered marital advice, which clearly I'm not qualified to do.
One-stop shop.
yeah, I guess so.
I'm going to play off the marital advice because he's speaking to an imposter scam or a spear phishing attack where someone's pretending to be him. But that marital or relationship aspect, what we're seeing through the Consumer Affairs Response Team are crypto investment schemes that start as a romance scam. So it's an imposter scam. Someone's pretending to be this online paramour. But on the side, they dabble as an investment advisor. And they provide evidence through photographs, websites, and other forms of evidence that appear to support a lavish lifestyle. And so curiosity can get the better of the individual. Men fall for this often, and it's tell me more. And they're lured into a scheme where they might make an initial small investment that quickly generates a large return, an outsized return to what would be an average market rate of return. The scammers, using artificial intelligence, fake websites, fake statements, appear to provide all of the supporting data to say, no, this is a legitimate investment and you are making money hand over fist, encouraging the victim to put more and more into crypto. So signs to watch out for. If
Is there any way that cryptocurrency that you can control it at all from your own perspective? I mean, if you put money in, isn't there some way of following it, looking at it?
Yes, there is. I can let Kelly get into that, but don't buy what you don't understand, first and foremost.
Yes.
If a scammer is sending you to a crypto ATM, we talked about Coinstar ATMs,
Yep.
the last segment that we had together. If they're asking you to secure a digital wallet, if they should mention a blockchain, words like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others, their confusion is a tactic. So recognize that if you're having to be led with the high degree of specificity, and I heard Kelly say that in his segment in terms of why are they being so specific and directive as to how I have to convert funds into another form, that is a major red flag. Ultimately, you're going to find that as you've been making money in crypto, you're going to want to access some of those funds. You will find in a cryptocurrency scam that your access to those funds is limited or completely removed. And that should be a major red flag warning as well. Now, I've trampled on your time, so please.
And absolutely. This is the conversation we need to have, because as these events take place, if you're working with an investment advisor that you know and trust, somebody that did not reach out to you but you reached out to them, then you understand what you've entered into. But if this came about with online, report this. Contact Adult Protective Services. Contact the Nebraska Attorney General. Contact the Nebraska Department of Banking and Finance. Report what is going on, because what has happened is these people do not label this a romance scam. They don't say that I'm going to create that. That's a government label. That was something that I needed in order to categorize something, but it means a confidence game. Somebody provided confidence to somebody else, and that was illegal. It was a lie. report that to banking and finance if it involves an investment, if it involves a bank or credit union. Report that to the Attorney General if there's threats of violence. The methods that they go to promise that that car is in the parking lot and just send $25 more to get that driver to wait. And it comes down to they will steal $25 at a time.
Yeah.
Jerry, if a senior suspects that they might be a victim of a con game, please stop all communication immediately with that online paramour, whether it's by phone, by text, by email. Stop the communication. Then please do not send good money after bad. Many times you are being told that if you want access to your funds, these funds that have now multiplied and made you wealthy, that they ask for fees to help unlock those funds. There is really no such thing. There is no fee per se to access your own money. Document everything. Please save all messages, screenshots, email addresses. In fact, if you contact our office, we can tell you exactly what we're going to need because it can be highly specific, like a hash number, a 64-digit number in the case of a Bitcoin scam. And then tell your bank or your crypto exchange immediately what's going on. Those are just a handful of measures. But if you contact our CART team, we'll be happy to help you in these crypto-related scams, which increasingly are stemming off of initial romance scams.
Tony, are you seeing some of this in Adult Protective Services?
I think we have seen a few instances where individuals are asked to go to those machines and put real money in to get Bitcoin. But frequently when calls come into the hotline, 800-652-1999, the Abuse Neglect Hotline for Nebraska.
Good, you slipped it in.
Thanks. If there's not enough information to say that the individual involved is vulnerable by the statutory definition of vulnerability, it won't necessarily be accepted for an investigation by Adult Protective Services. However, please know that every one of those reports is forwarded to local law enforcement and can also find their way into the AG's office and licensing if it involves a facility. So we do share information with our partner agencies. So that's important to know. As far as whether we're seeing cryptocurrency, it is coming up. It's probably not as prevalent as it is nationally, but Nebraska tends to be just maybe a beat behind.
Sure.
But that's good. You know,
Yeah.
we're good so far. We have an opportunity to do more educating.
Yeah. Let's see if we can somehow reasonably bring this to a close. How about each of you? What can we do? I mean, this is a terrible situation. You guys just do yeoman service for the state to try to help people out. What are our next steps? What do we need to do? And what should we do to get people to contact you?
Don't suffer in silence. That's the first thing that I will say. We have too many of our seniors suffering in silence because of fear, personal shame and embarrassment. Reach out to someone, tell one other individual, know that you have a friend in the Attorney General's office. You can report anonymously to APS. You can report on the record to the Attorney General's office. We're happy to take the call. Our consumer advocates are older, compassionate, empathetic, experienced individuals who can properly direct your complaint and provide a level of comfort and satisfaction that they can hopefully be restored. So I know we'll be putting up our numbers, but we do have a toll-free number that we would like people to be aware of across the state, including locally, 1-800-727-6432. That will get you to our Consumer Affairs response team during business hours, but we do get back the next business day if the call comes in after business hours. We do get back, and we do get back promptly. We also have a consumer-oriented website where much of the information that we're discussing today is housed.
That's a great website.
And it is protectthegoodlife.nebraska.gov. I'll cede to my peers here their numbers.
And with that, any individual that's experiencing financial loss through their bank, through their credit union, through their broker-dealer, investment advisor, reach out to the Department of Banking and Finance. We have opportunities to work directly with those institutions. Most certainly, contact the institution first. but do not do this in silence. We need those reports coming in. We need to know what is happening. It is too easy to believe that they fell a victim when in reality this was a very structured crime. We have the ability to assemble numbers. We keep track of everything from digital wallets to bank account numbers to hashed transaction identifiers in such a way that we can accumulate those and help track what is happening to Nebraskans. Find a trusted friend, talk to someone, and at the same time pick up the phone and call the Department of Banking and Finance if you have a question relative to those types of entities that we regulate. And those regulated entities are the ones that touch your money, likely. 402-471-2171.
Wonderful, thank you. Mark?
I think one of the most important things for folks to do when they realize that there's a problem with their money is to take steps to stop that. And that may mean revoking a durable power of attorney and notifying law enforcement, whether it's the Attorney General or the State Patrol or the local sheriff or police. We'll work together on those kinds of things. But you don't have to go through this by yourself. And the two things that stop people from reporting, I think, are pride and fear. And those are things that we can overcome. And they shouldn't have to put up with somebody being unscrupulous with their money. You can reach us either through the 800 number that Ryan gave or directly at 402-471-3549.
Wonderful. Tony, you get the last word.
Well, the last word is definitely report. If you're concerned about your own finances, if you're suspicious that somebody is helping themselves to your money, please report. If you are caring for someone or know someone who may be vulnerable and they're being exploited or they're being abused or neglected in any way, please report. Call that 800-652-1999. You don't have to prove that there's abuse, neglect, or exploitation happening. You don't even have to have all the information. Just tell us what you can. Frequently when someone is being victimized and mistreated, there are other people who are concerned for them too. So sometimes we'll receive several reports from different corners involving the same individual. So maybe your report isn't accepted, but taken together with the other 2 or 3 that we're receiving, we can tell that this person definitely needs some help and needs a worker to get out and see them. So please don't hesitate. Everybody in Nebraska is a reporter, although we do have mandated reporters, and you know who you are, medical professionals and mental health and other professionals who work with people who are vulnerable. But everybody can pick up the phone or go to the DHHS website and report.
Thank you all so much. I know you are incredibly busy people and you do wonderful things, but thank you for coming down and spending some time with us today. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in. You've been watching Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. Remember, stay safe, stay healthy, and it's never too late to live and learn.